Yo, what's going on, guys? Today, of course, I want to talk about the Atlanta Hawks, especially with Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jalen Johnson playing the way that they are. So, before we start today's video, I'd like to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. Are you guys enjoying the Atlanta Hawks this season? And it's weird to say because Trey Young has not been a huge part of this team. I just hit some pretzels that were on my desk, and that's what you heard fall. Hit that like and subscribe button and let me hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. The Atlanta Hawks entered this 2025-26 NBA season with a deliberately rebalanced roster, aiming to complement Trae Young's offensive brilliance with two-way competence. They brought in Porziņģis and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who were expected to unlock another level for Trey Young by introducing defensive stability and secondary playmaking. And with Nikil Alexander-Walker, who was acquired via a sign-and trade on a 4-year, $60.6 million contract, was initially projected to be a low-usage, high-impact 3-and-D, 6-man role behind Dyson Daniels, who was the starting shooting guard. The start of the season was turbulent, with the Hawks posting a shaky 2-3 record, 2 wins to 3 losses with their primary star. This early uncertainty was magnified when Trey Young suffered an MCL sprain in late October, forcing him out of the lineup. Nickeil Alexander-Walker immediately thrusted into the starting lineup as kind of the shooting guard, with Dyson Daniels taking on more of the point guard responsibilities. But obviously this was a lot more responsibilities than people were expecting Nickeil Alexander-Walker to be assuming. With this shift, it ended up being kind of profound and unexpected. In Young's absence, the team experienced a dramatic change in identity and performance. They quickly stabilized their defense with an impressive 7-2 record during this stretch. And the success, I think, interestingly enough, is linked to a sharp defensive improvement, with the Hawks achieving the third best defensive record in the league during this injury period without Trey Young. And I think if we look at the empirical data, it would give us evidence that they removed this high usage offensive hub who catalyzed immediate team performance improvement and a monumental defensive spike, aka taking out Trey Young led to the team getting better defensively and as a whole for the team. So I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels all have been optimized to work better in this framework of shared ball handling and defensive prioritization, which allows them to have more of this kind of ideal hierarchical system instead of playing in that pre-existing heliocentric star structure around Trey Young. So with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I think the biggest thing there is over his first 17 games, his output is really, really interesting. He's averaging 19 points, almost 4 assists, 3 rebounds in 32 minutes a night. And I think what's crazy is he went from being a guy who I think a lot of people a few years ago thought he was just going to be a role player. At this point, he's showing that he's a part of this team, and his usage rate is at 23.5%. And when he was with the Timberwolves, they never got over 16%. So him basically going from the secondary creator to a primary creator, taking almost 17 field goal attempts per 36 minutes, is an immense increase in volume. And as a result, he's been able to actually keep up this impressive true shooting number of 59% and 46% from the field almost. While Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a guy who possesses the capability to be a high-level perimeter defender to neutralize opposing star guards. Obviously, when he guarded his cousin, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, in the Western Conference Finals, we all saw that. And offensively, I think we're seeing the decisive presence that he can be, that he not only is a solid spot-up shooter to a genuine slashing threat who creates and converts on open looks. And I think we've seen this in high leverage situations over this recent 13-game run. He's averaged 13.3 clutch points on an exceptional 83.8 83.3% overall shooting. And I like to think that he's a guy who has been able to be just phenomenal for this team. And it's a result of Quin Snyder and also the players around him. So Quin Snyder, if you don't know, his offensive philosophy emphasizes continuous ball and player movement, spreading ball handling duties across multiple players. We're seeing it here: Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And the strategy here aims to create offensive rhythm through decisive passing and collective effort. And I think Snyder employs the 5-slot formation, which is an evolution of the traditional 5-out spacing. In the 5 slot, the center, the 5, often Kristaps Porziņģis, sometimes Onyeka Okongwu, begins possession near the weak side slot, moving away from the top of the key. This adjustment allows for a couple of advantages. It significantly widens driving lanes for perimeter players like Nikil Alexander-Walker, and it effectively deprioritizes the defensive center by drawing the opposing rim protector away from the paint. And with this, it fundamentally is designed to prioritize half-court actions that run through non-centers, such as guards and power forwards, aka Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Risacher. And this has led to the Jalen Johnson ascension. And I think that's been the cornerstone of the Hawks' recent success. Beyond Alexander-Walker's stabilizing presence, the explosion and the versatility that Jalen Johnson, who's transformed into an all-NBA caliber player this year, averaging almost 22 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, just had a triple-double. And he's someone that he's arguably the best player on this team, better than Trey Young. Johnson's breakout is been enabled by the 5 slot, which deliberately centers the offense around the power forward and typically positioned at the top of the key. In this configuration, it maximizes Johnson's triple threat ability from the elbow, allowing him to command defensive attention and collapse opposing schemes. And his ability to take over as the primary playmaker, operating as the secondary ball mover, which shifts the primary offensive axis away from a single guard. The Hawks' success is rooted in the fact that without Trey Young, Johnson was able to transform into a star, leading the team's collective effort, where we just saw that, like last night, he had that triple-double. And then with Alexander-Walker's skill set being ideally suited for this flow-based egalitarian, I think would be the right way of saying it, egalitarian system, without the heliocentric star Trey Young has, they're able to now have superior flow characterized by 5 guys touching the ball, clean spacing, and taking the best shots, and drastically reducing dumb turnovers. Nickeil Alexander-Walker acts as this critical connector capable of initiating the offense, handling secondary pick and rolls, executing quick dribble handoffs with Jalen Johnson or Kristaps Porziņģis or Risacher or Dyson Daniels, and the ability that he can be a reliable creator without becoming a ball stopper is something that I think is why they're able to maintain this continuity and efficiency with different lineups. Other guys like Vit Krejci are able to help there. So I think his playmaking ability lifts a burden and allows them to be more effective, which then Johnson, who's able to operate within this structure, doesn't have to feel the need to constantly reset or cover for the stagnant possessions or high-risk errors that might have occurred with Trey Young. And then obviously, Nickeil Alexander-Walker's defensive impact is something that's great with him. His on-ball pressure, often paired with Dyson Daniels, Risacher, and even Jalen Johnson, makes them a formidable perimeter defense at the point of attack, where they can have pre-switching, which this allows the Hawks to effectively conceal defensive liabilities such as Young when he returns from repeated offensive attacks. Their perimeter pressure establishes this 3-layered defense that they have the long-armed perimeter defenders funneling ball handlers towards the paint, where either a weak side rim protector like Johnson can apply aggressive help and Kristaps Porziņģis can act as the imposing towering help side rim protector. And I think that just allows for a better system. And with Trey Young absence inadvertently allowing Hawks to stumble into the golden lineup combination that I think with Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Risacher, and Kristaps Porziņģis ranking 7th in net rating among 35-man units that have had over 100 minutes played together, just shows that this is a stout half-court defense, boasting a top 4 ranking half-court points allowed, and also just being a team that is able to maximize the offensive side. But their length provided by Daniels, Risacher, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Jalen Johnson have made their perimeter rotation solid. And then without Young, they've leaned heavily on Dyson Daniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker on the guards, with Keaton Wallace and Vit Krejci off the bench helping them out. So, look, real quickly before we continue, is like I like Trey Young, and I think Trey Young's cool, but the team was 16.1 points per 100 possessions worse with Trey Young on the court to start the season. And the problem with him is he takes low percentage deep threes, risky pass, and he does a lot of dumb turnovers and his transition points for the opponent, and he kills offensive momentum. I understand why there might be things that Trey Young hasn't been great at, all right? Like with Trey Young, they were worse, just worse, and everything without him, they've been better. So Nickeil Alexander-Walker has been arguably the second or third best Hawks this season behind Jalen Johnson. Demoting him back to the six-man role after Trey Young returns is going to be weird. And Quin Snyder faces the six-starter dilemma, which Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dyson Daniels, second year, Risacher, obviously Jalen Johnson. You're going to figure out, because Daniels being one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, while Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's a middle of the ground to a high impact defensive player, does that force Dyson to the bench? And it's going to be interesting to see, because Trey Young did not finalize an extension and he has a player option for next year. I think they want to see what happens, because Johnson's centric Hawks team is not only competitive, but I think a better team. And I don't want to say they don't need Trey Young. I think everything's better if they would have Trey Young. The biggest question here is that Nickeil Alexander-Walker's transformation and the ascension of Jalen Johnson forces two things. If Trey Young can drastically reduce his ball dominance and be this decoy and prioritize two-way engagement and integrate into the structure that's been validated by Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jalen Johnson, then the Hawks possess an incredibly high ceiling due to all this talent that they have. Now, if Trey Young's established bad habits preclude him from adapting to this decentralized system, the organization must conclude that his presence is irreconcilable, right? Irreconcilable. It's whatever, like just not fittable and might be detrimental to this team. And that's what we're going to figure out at this point. But I think they have a lot of good stuff working in their direction.